Hello. A little bit overdue here on this account review, but I like stalling. Before I get into things though, I would like to announce that by popular demand, I'm opening a Discord server. So if you want to harass me about not uploading or not going live on Twitch, it's a good place for it. Or if you just want to, uh, ask me questions about the game, help with your Guild War attacks, that type of stuff. Also a good place for that. And I've also posted all of my unit builds in there in a relatively organized fashion. I use like the forms thingy feature of Discord, and it actually it looks pretty nice actually. It's a nice grid of units. You can search, you can sort by element and type. It's kind of nice. Anyways. With that announcement out of the way though, let me just put some statistics up on screen. So, in the Contention season, I've played just a bit over 3,300 games as shown here. And I finished with a 61% win rate, which is my highest win rate of any season. And I think, however, before Model Luluca came out, I was close to 66% win rate, I'm pretty sure. So Model Luluca making me change my pre-bans to permaban her really kind of threw a wrench in my season, not gonna lie. Like, I think I would have been a lot more chillax if she hadn't have come out, but she did. And I had to deal with Ran as a result. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through my units by pick order. I'm not going to go through my whole box or anything ridiculous because, like, like it's an RTA account review. Like, who cares about units that I picked like one time and lost with them? Like, yeah, let's be real here. And I'll give some insight into like why I've built them like I have, why I chose their artifacts, what I've played them into, that type of deal. So, it's not just going to be me showing their stats and all. But yeah, that's the plan here. So, let's get into it, I suppose. I'll also put up like what their win rate was and how much I pick them as well. Yeah, actually, here, let me just like mention a few other interesting things, right? Because of third pick ban projection, it was like a lot more. Wait, is polarizing the right word? Maybe not. The difference between the most picked units and the lesser picked units is pretty extreme. Like, you can see that I picked Jenua close to 1,600 times, right? And then if we scroll down to number 10, I only picked Senya like 300 times. So, I picked my first most picked unit is picked like 5 times more than my 10th most picked unit, which is kind of crazy. It means I was essentially playing the same few units every game, and that's enabled by third pick ban reduction because you have to be you don't have to be as flexible in your draft. You can force whatever you want through, which I really don't like ban protection, even though I'm pretty sure I benefited from it because like I mean, I don't think I was like okay, maybe I was drafting better than before, but like I don't know, man. I don't think my win rate should randomly shoot up a few percent over a previous season. I mean, maybe it should. I don't know. Maybe I'm underselling myself here, but I really did not like third pick ban protection. It just made every game feel the same because you could just draft the same every game. It just let everybody force a strategy essentially. But yeah, let's get into my Jenua build, I suppose. Hold. I forgot to mention one detail that's kind of important for an RTA account review. What are my prebans? What is my play style? Maybe kind of important to mention. So for starters, my prebans for after Model Luluca came out was Model Luluca because that unit is beyond disturbing and I don't have speed, so I can't really play her effectively because anybody leaving Model Luluca open is a cleaver and I will just die to them. And my other P-ban was Pera. This one's a little bit unusual But essentially, I wanted to play Emma and Pearl is really good into Emma, and I also played a lot of Conqueror Lilias, who Pearl also is quite good into, right? Like, I could deal with the other openers a little bit better, but Pearl, she's just a little bit too flexible in my opinion. Like, I feel like a lot of people just, I don't know, man. I don't know why more people don't pick Pearl, to be honest with you. Like, she's so flexible, man. Because, you know, you can play cleave with her, right? But the thing I don't see a lot of people do, which they probably should, is just pivot to standard with her. Because, like, isn't 30% RES and attack buff and CC and OP debuffs? Like, isn't that just broken? Like, you have a mitigation knight essentially on your team with an infinite health pool that can stun things every turn, and unbuffables, AoE unbuffable strips and restricts. Like, what? That can't be right. So yeah, Pearl is a little bit too broken for me. Because, like, you know, I had people saying, oh, why don't you just pick Beatdom? Bro, she can just press S3, and then she can just pivot to standard, and then you have Beatdom on your team versus standard when they have escort attack buff and CC. I'm good, man. Not fighting that. I am quite content not fighting that. So yeah, that was kind of the justification there. I will say leaving Ran open definitely made the game a lot harder for me. When I was able to pre-ban Ran Pearl, the game was a lot easier. I really liked Ran Pearl pre-bans, but you know, the meta can't be the same for the whole duration of the season, so it's expected for me to have to switch up my strategies. But yeah, okay, into it for real this time. Oh wait, no, that was just the pre-bans. Hold up. So now my playstyle. We're actually still stalling here, yes. So my playstyle was aggro for sure. I tried to play Emma, and if not, I tried to play like Laia Jenua or something dumb like that. I didn't want long drawn out matches because I didn't really. Okay, I either wanted to play control or I wanted to play aggro, because you know, letting your opponent press buttons is a good way to lose, right? You know, if your opponent isn't pressing buttons, there's a lot more certainty you can have, right? If that makes sense, because like I don't know. I think that's the best way to phrase it, right? Like, you know what's going to happen if you know that your opponent can't do anything versus you. Good take. Okay, I think that's the best I'm gonna do for explaining my playstyle. It's a little bit hard to explain because, like, you know, I wasn't always fully like committed to playing full on aggro, but not much. I'm really at a loss of how to explain outside of I'm a Jenua one trick. There we go. Okay, onto the account review for real now. Now, it's definitely worth mentioning that another reason for the game count discrepancy is when the unit is picked in the draft. So these units in my top 5 were all things picked within the first 3 slots of a draft, or honestly, generally 1 and 2 as well. Like 1, 2, and 3 is pretty much where everything in the top 10 or so was picked. Maybe a bit less than top 10, but you know, that's the general idea. Because they're just so powerful that you want to, you know, mold your whole draft around them. And Jenua is definitely one of those units. Like, if you've played him, you've played against him, you know this guy does a little bit too much damage. Now, Emma Ilinov kind of counters him, and so does Bloodblade Karin, actually. So, we're fighting Immortal with Immortal, I suppose, but during the season, not many people had picked up on Bloodblade Karin, and Emma Ilinov obviously did not exist. So, Jenua was absolutely insane, and especially on an effect resist build, because a lot of the answers to Jenua are to control him in some way, right? Like, you either bring Politis, like I saw a lot of people bring Politis on Fairy Tale for a Nightmare into me. That didn't work, right? Because I would just resist the Politis, or if they had effectiveness, they wouldn't do enough damage to even proc the mortality, right? So, yeah, it was just a little bit disgusting, right? Or I'd play him into DDR, and because, you know, they don't really have that much effectiveness generally on the more standard DDR builds, he wouldn't be able to do anything to me. I would just resist, and I would just kill his team while not getting debuffed at all, which is very nice, very nice. Or, I mean, those are the two main scenarios actually. Or into cleave, sometimes it'd be a little bit relevant having ER, but not really. I didn't really play Jenua into cleave that much, but you know, it's like the ER was just really good for me personally because I mean, as you can see, I'm still doing really good damage. Like I'm close to 4k 350 on him still. On Windrider. Windrider is very important for him, mind you, because going stealth essentially just guarantees you another turn, even if your immortality has already been procced, right? Like they only have single target attacks. How are they going to kill your Jenua if he essentially has Guiding Light? Okay, well, essentially he's if he's stealth, man. You can call the mechanic. But yeah, Jenua is just a little bit too broken. I played a little bit too much Jenua as well, but you know, his best friend was obviously Poli, but I played Poli without Jenua. I played Jenua without Poli quite a bit. Like a common draft I did was when Poli was pre-banned, was into like DDR first pick and whatnot, was Laia Jenua. I would just slam it, because why not? You know, you have a cleanse for your Jenua, and you have temp damage with the Jenua, so you know, and it lets you posture for an aggressive draft. Essentially, is what I was going for with it. But yeah, I definitely look, I'm not a Jenua one trick. Okay, don't call me that, but maybe I am slightly because you know. I think, what, close to 1.6k games played with Jenua? Okay, maybe he was in close to half of my games. Okay. Wait, probably half, technically, because I imagine he got post-banned quite a bit as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if I picked him in over half of my games. It's just, yeah, if something gets banned, it doesn't actually get put onto your win rate sheet, right? Because you didn't actually play the game with that unit. But yeah, Jenua kind of broken. You know who is also broken and happens to fully penetrate defense? Laia. Now I have double craft event. Oh wait, maybe I should click on pieces, because people are probably interested in that type of stuff. So you got 101, 105, 103, and the funny thing about this defense roll is, it's technically dead stat, but I feel like sometimes Karina would S3 my Jenua, right? And because I'm ER, I don't get death broken. And I would survive with literally like 10 health or something without my immortal getting procced from the Karina S3. So it would it would leave them in an awkward scenario because now my Jenua is so low health that they can't hit him at all. If they have any AoE on their team, he just procs. And I'm pretty sure, and I would still have immortal. And I'm pretty sure it was actually enabled by this defense roll somehow, some way. But yeah, that's like the only dead stat on his gear though. Got 101 neck. This neck is a little bit insane. And then the ring and boots are kind of garbage, but no dead stat, so I can't really complain that much. Okay, they're not garbage. They're just not as insane as the rest of the gear. But yeah. And then we've got Laia, who, you know, if Poli was banned, I would try to play Laia. And if they took Laia, I kind of just lost, honestly. Like, I didn't have a very good win rate into Laia first pick. I had some strategies versus her. But, I mean, if you're second pick into Laia first pick, they just have so much more, like, what's that word I'm looking for, man? Help. Hold on. I'm actually stun locked. Give me a minute. Okay, I found the word. It's agency. They had, if you're Laia first pick, you have so much agency over the direction of the match compared to your opponent. Because you've already locked in your DPS, you've already locked in a cleanser, and you've already locked in a unit that gives your team tempo, and you've already locked in tempo with dual attacks and tempo with her S2 cooldown reset, right? So her kit's just a little bit too good, I think. And it's why I... Okay, wait. Okay, I didn't double craft event for Laia. I made this ring for Lily. It had ER on it initially, and then I modded it. Flat health. for Laia. But the second craft event was definitely for Laia, as you can see. So you got essentially double right side craft event for the Laia. I'm missing 30 flat health here. I'm pretty sure it's closer to like 20 if I were to max roll this, but I think I'm okay. Missing 10 flat HP. Wait. Oh no, I can just get an imprint to get to 328 400. But regardless, Laia is just a bit too much for a lot of people to deal with, right? Like if they went DDRA Tywin into you, for example, you just draft to control them back, generally speaking. Like one of the common drafts that... Okay, I didn't invent Laia Bidam Nahkwol, but I'm pretty sure I'm one of the first people to start doing it. And it would take the Bidam away from them, right? So you'd have Bidam, and then you'd have Nahkwol to control them. But I feel like a lot of people actually solved that draft by picking Belian on 3, and then you wouldn't be able to soul burn Laia. You wouldn't be able to soul burn reset their team, right? So you now have Nahkwol with a lot of RNG on your side, and you would generally just die to Albris because they would slam, you know, they'd have a Tywin on their side, and then they'd slam like Navy Captain Landy. That was a pretty common scenario. So I stopped doing that draft in the last couple of weeks, and I just played Conqueror instead into them, which was an aggro draft. And I stopped playing Monk as well because Monk is too RNG, honestly. I stopped forcing Monk on 3. Monk on 3 is such a bait draft, honestly, most of the time. You're just asking to get die to RNG. Especially with the beat on Monk draft, you're asking to die to RNG. But Laia just enables so many different play styles. Like, I wasn't only first picking Laia, right? Like, for example, when I had first picked Politis, ML Poly, if they stole Jenua and they Tywin, which is something people did quite a bit, I would just slam Laia Carmen, dude. And then I would have immunity, I would have a cleanse, I'd have double mitigation, and then I would have an easy option to just flex into whatever I want, right? Like, it's such a strong foundation of a team, because you'd have debuffs pushback and the pseudo speed buff from ML Poly, right? So you would cycle into Laia S3 very fast, and you would have you just have everything you need to deal with a Tywin Jenua, essentially. You know, you can go Nahkwol. Well, the most common draft was ML Poly first pick, they'd go Jenua, a Tywin. I'd go Laia Carmen, and then people eventually solved that you could go DJB into that, kinda. But I mean, I could also just go right. Okay, wait. Let's not go too detailed in this. But I would essentially get a last pick, get a force span out of them from Nahkwol, and then just pick whatever I want that also deals with their team, with that draft. Which was pretty good because nobody wants to actually fight Laia Nahkwol if they don't have to. So Nahkwol is the best unit to pick if you don't want something to get through the draft. Even if she's not a very good pick there in that scenario. But yeah. Laia a little bit too broken. I think she might be kept in check a little bit more this season because of Ilinov's existence. Not necessarily because of people actually playing Ilinov though, right? Like, just the threat of Ilinov existing is probably enough to shift her out of the meta a little bit. But I still think she's strong, even against Ilinov, because you can kind of just control the Ilinov in a lot of scenarios. But yeah, moving on to ML Poly. Yes, this is the Poly I was running for the entirety of the season. And it is also the top speed on my account. Feel free to laugh. But on the other hand, if you're laughing at me, where's your legend frame, bro? Huh? If you are faster than me and you don't have a legend frame, isn't it just skill issue? It is just skill issue. But yeah, I would pick this first. Pretty much. Okay. Yeah, I would pick it first pretty much always. Last couple of weeks when it was open. Like, I got a bit scared of first picking it when they had cleave pre-bans after I had to let Ran out of the cage, but I eventually just said fuck it, I'll pick her anyways, and it worked out pretty well actually, even into Ran players. Some Ran players, not all Ran players. If you're a good Ran player, and you could pretty much always be ML Play first pick, I feel, but the bad Ran players, I would eat them. free points with my weird ER builds and my weird random protection sets and my Holy Sack Senya. Holy Sack Senya was pretty good. But anyways, we're talking about Emma Poli. Emma Poli's best strengths are obviously a Tywin and Jenua. But you didn't run into many people who would actually give you a Tywin and Jenua. Because, you know, it synergizes a little bit too well with her kit because their kits, they get infinitely stronger when they have rage. Oh, and would you look at this? Gives your team rage. But even if you didn't actually have units that cared about getting enraged to enable their kits, like, okay, pretend this ability didn't give your team rage. Isn't it still kind of a broken okay, it's not a broken ability, but strip, pushback, slow, ignore ER soulburn. Isn't that really broken even if you don't get rage? It's not like super broken or anything, but like, is that really strong? Like, people would probably still pick Emma Poli if she didn't give your team rage, and they just gave her like this dual attack always. Because like she has the guiding light built in, so you're able to run whatever artifact you want. In this case, I would always run Unseen Observer on her because 10 souls is so valuable with the synergistic, you know, with her best friends, like I mentioned, the Jenua. You can gab him turn 1 every game, which is a little bit broken. A Tywin, you can reduce his cooldowns every game, which is a little bit broken. But something that happened in the last week, though, is that Jenua wasn't actually played that much with her, because Bloodbaited Karin is a little bit more broken than Jenua, because Bloodbaited Karin can beat Jenua, and Bloodbaited Karin just kind of kills the entire enemy team rather than one unit, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I don't know, Poli is just a little bit too broken. Like, she gives your team too many turns compared to your opponent, right? Between the slow and pushback, if you dropped another pushback unit, you're suddenly taking like 2 full turns before your opponent gets 1, and you're able to just set up so much for winning the game, right? Like, you could pair her with Requiem Roana, they would get reset in addition to getting pushed back. So, and then because they're slowed and you're speed up, you would take like 3+ turns before they would have their first ability up, essentially. But yeah, I generally played her like with the cringe Laia draft or with the cringe Jenua stuff, but she definitely carried me, and I probably did not have a very positive win rate into her, actually. But, you know, if your second pick, if you have even a 50% win rate into something, that's pretty good, I think. And then moving on to Nahkwol. Dude, I fucking hate Nahkwol. I hate playing her, and I hate playing against her. But this is probably the worst in world Nahkwol. We are 278 speed, because we're forcing immunity, and we're only 150 effectiveness, because we have 4 pieces of purple gear. The gear is all really bad on her. Oh wait, I didn't show Poli gear. I didn't show Laia gear either. Help. Wait, hold on. Wait, boots, chest, helmet, sword. I wish the sword was better. And then 22, 21, 20, 22, this piece is insane. 40 effectiveness boots, this piece is also kind of insane. And then 22. Yes, I am quite slow, but what can you do? Okay, onto Nahkwol. I tried to not force Nahkwol in the last week. She was just too inconsistent, and I'm pretty sure if I were forcing Nahkwol, I would not have finished Legend. Earlier in the season, I played a lot of the beat up Nahkwol, and I played a lot of... Okay, I didn't play a lot of Carmen Nahkwol, but I tried Carmen Nahkwol, and it was actually decent, I think. I think it was better than beat up Nahkwol, just because you'd have a bit more backbone on your team, and you might bait your opponent into picking Beat-Om, who is a bad unit. In a more standard match, at least. If your opponent's playing aggressive, Beat-Om's very strong. But yeah, I don't know. Regardless, Nahkwol is obviously on paper very broken, but the problem you run into is if you're not playing her with a book and you miss one of your debuffs, don't you just kind of lose? Like, you miss a reset on DDR, don't you just lose? Or you miss a bind on Landy, don't you just lose? Right? Like, there's so much that can go wrong if you're playing Nahkwol, and It just is not a good time, honestly, for either player. And you miss your seal on something. I mean, can't you just lose off of that? So there's just so many places for it to go wrong, and it often does go wrong. So I just kind of stopped picking her for the most part, even though I had played her so much during the season. But I mean, she's obviously still worth having geared though, right? Don't get me wrong, because she's a little bit too broken. And if you pick her with books, she's a lot more consistent. But if you're playing Bidam Nahkwol, you wouldn't have book. Or if you're playing Carmen Nahkwol, you would not have book. So you're kind of trapped into not picking book with her, because like it wouldn't round up your team properly in those drafts. Now, what a lot of whales are doing with their unseen observers, that's not the right artifact, on their bird's eye views, is they're putting it on their Bidam, and they're making their Bidam faster than their Nahkwol. So then you push up the Nahkwol, you get your souls, and then you can soulburn Nahkwol still. I think that was kind of nice, but bro, how am I supposed to make a Bidam that fast, man? Like, I'm pretty sure if I put my Emma Poly gear on my Bidam, I'm like still within speed RNG range of my Nahkwol somehow. Like, isn't that a bit sad? Ugh. Oh well, I'll just keep complaining. But regardless, Nahkwol's dumb, right? Especially with Laia, when you can reset her cooldowns, right? Like, your opponent just gets to press no buttons the entire game sometimes. But again, you're just put in a scenario where you're 115% away from death, which isn't fun to play against or with. But yeah, let's just move on here to Conqueror Lilias. I pretty much... Okay, I didn't exclusively pick her on 3, but I pretty much only picked her on 3. And that was to enable my later picks, right? So I'd have Laia first pick generally, right? And this is when Sea Phantom Politis is pre-banned. And then I'd go Jenua, Conqueror Lilias on 3. This is a very common draft I would do into GDR A Tywin players on the last week. Because I don't know if it was necessarily a strong draft, but at the very least, people weren't very equipped to deal with it. Which is often more important than a draft being, like actually really strong, right? Like, if your opponent's not equipped to deal with your draft, it doesn't matter how weak the units on your team are, right? If you have an actual strategy that can win versus your opponent's stuff, and they can't deal with it, like they don't have stuff built to deal with it, it's actually a really good draft, even if on paper it might not be that good and is easy to deal with, right? It's why people are so annoyed with ER cheesers. Not to compare myself to... Okay, wait, aren't I an ER cheeser, actually? Maybe. Yeah, that's why people are so annoyed with ER cheesers, right? Because they're not equipped to deal with them. But if you're equipped to deal with an ER cheeser, which technically this draft actually does fall into that category, because playing aggressive into an ER cheeser is a free win, generally speaking. You just win, right? Wait, shit, where was I going with this thought? Anyways, the draft with Conqueror Lilias was Laia, Jenua, Conk on 3, so I'd have a guaranteed opener on 3, and it'd let me flex 2 control units on 4-5, or 2 nukers on 4-5, right? Depending on what they pick. So if they went GDR, A Tywin, and then if they went like Albedo and Candy or something, I would just be able to slam Hwayoung and Nahkwol, for example, and they would force ban the Nahkwol would essentially be a force ban because I'd have debuffs into Nahkwol, and then I would get Conqueror Hwa through, right, which is enough damage to one-tap pretty much any unit in the game, and I would just kill their DDR, or I'd kill their Candy, depending on what I'd be able to post-ban, and they just wouldn't have the damage or the tempo to win from that position, generally speaking, because of the Conqueror on 3, right? Or I'd be able to pick Requiem Roana and reset their cooldowns, or I'd pick, I'd just have so many options because I'd have first pick, not because my draft was good. Okay, no, maybe not. I don't know. I think it was just a very flexible draft that people weren't accustomed to deal with, because The only conk players on the ladder that I saw, outside of me, were people playing conk candy, like the light E7 or the draft light popularized. I don't know. I guess he gets to claim ownership over it, I suppose. But yeah, I was also a conk player, and the Warhorn was important to the draft. Like I'm pretty sure I was the only Warhorn conk player on the ladder. No Meowmix clones, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. I'm pretty sure if I had clones, I would have been doomed. But yeah, Conk was very good. Don't get it twisted. Conk is still broken, even if she's not the best opener in the game. Her kit is still very overloaded. And then we have Crimson Armin, the best mitigation in the game. Oh wait, shit, I keep forgetting to click on pieces. Her gear's not very good, but 16 speed, 19 speed. Just some random effectiveness boots. 22 offset, 19 garbage subs, 20 offset, okay subs actually. Yeah. Then we have Carmen, who I'm pretty sure 100% of her games played were on 3-pick band protection, and pretty much 100% of her games were played with Laia. Yeah. This unit's a little disgusting though, because Senya and Blood Moon Haste are both meta, right? And it's actually, there's not much mitigation in the game that actually works on them. But Carmen has generic damage mitigation, so she's good into those guys. And she holds Arya, so you get even more mitigation versus them. And then you put out the invincibility, so then you get a stall even longer, because your Laia is generally tuned to take 2 turns before the Carmen gets her first turn, so you can cleanse the Carmen if the Carmen gets CC'd, or you can get another guaranteed turn of safety, you know, to ramp up your Laia S3. And she has Team ER Imprint if you do want to ER cheese, which, you know, I may have partaken in a little bit with my Jenua and my Gala build, which is coming up as well. But yeah, you don't need good gear for Carmen to function. You just need to be tanky, and you don't really need immunity either if you want to run health set, but all of my gear on her is pretty bad actually. Okay, it's high health, but like, you know, this number is low, and that's all that matters if we're talking about how good a piece of gear is. Like 79, 80, okay, this one's kind of good. 87 purple. Oh, this one's also pretty good, but you know, this one's not so good because it's 12 speed and you don't really need speed on her. But decent bulk stats. And this is 66 equipment score reforged. Okay, that's a kind of funny piece. But yeah, like close to 1k flat health isn't awful, is it? I guess not. And you've got, you know, 720 flat health with decent bulk stats there as well. But yeah, ER wasn't... Okay, ER would be nice on her. Like, if I could have this similar bulk with, like, 100 ER, I would. And, you know, that could maybe be facilitated by having not 70 equip score right side pieces. Or even 70 equip score left side. But yeah. I mean, I had close to a 70% win rate with 4 pieces of purple gear equipped. This unit might not be okay, is all I'm going to say. Yeah, it's just a little bit too much mitigation for most people to deal with. And if you are put in a scenario where you do have some turn 1 priority with Carmen, they can't even pick like the aggressive units that would be able to deal with her into you, right? It's why I played so much of the Holy Laia Carmen draft. It's just because you would have the turn 1 priority, and it would just be very difficult for them to deal with your stuff. But regardless, best mitigation in the game right now. Moving on to another disgustingly broken unit, Blood Moon Haste. I didn't actually play much Blood Moon Haste early in this season, because I don't know, I just didn't have a good build for him. But I rolled this ring, and then I had a good build for him, which is this build. I think ER is kind of a dead stat on him most of the time. You either just want to be really tanky, or really, really high health on him. And there's not much room for ER in those stat lines, I think. If you want to be counter set. If you want speed set, you can get ER in on him, but a counter set, if you want a good build and you're not ER cheesing with like 200 plus ER and like 20k health, yeah, there's just not much room in his stat line for it. But this build would tank LQC S3s, which was kind of funny. It would tank Aiden, it would tank Candy, it would tank like it would tank Candy S3 specifically. Like I know I gear gapped some people with this build. Like I'd eat their Candy S3. And yeah, I don't know, just not dying on the unit. They're focusing down because they feel forced to focus down is just a little bit too valuable, I feel, which is why I went for this build. Now you do need a lot of flat stubs to get to this stat line, but yeah, it's definitely worth it if you can. Other the piece, okay, the right side's kind of annoying to get because it is pure bulk with flat subs, and but it's not high equip score either. But the left side's not so great outside of this piece, I think. Like, this piece is obviously really good. But this one's like only 90 with a flat defense modded onto it. This one's only 84, but it's technically lower because, you know, I don't think 18 ER does anything. But yeah, you know, you'd counter Celestine heal to full, and because his EHP is so high, it'd be even more valuable than like the 24k, 2k, 100 ER defense build that was probably one of the more common ones. But yeah, I don't know. Haste is a little bit too disgusting. Like, actually a little bit too disgusting. You know, like, if you kill anything on Haste team, he'll just come back and kill it. Like, he'll one-tap something on your team, and then he'll bring back the thing you killed, so then you die to it anyways. So you have to focus the Haste down. I don't know. What were you thinking, Small Gate? I don't think you were thinking. But regardless, moving on to a Tywin here, we're going to start speeding up because I pick these units less. And I don't think I necessarily... I don't know. I just pick these units less, so I have a little bit less to say about them. A Tywin, I obviously played him a lot with Poli. But the thing is I don't like my build for him. Although I think I was on a slightly different build. Like I took off good gear from him for the last week because I changed my DDR build. But regardless, I was on a Gala bait build, but I probably ate less than 10 Gala S3s throughout the season. And even if I had Gala picked into it, I think I'm pretty sure I lost anyways sometimes, even though, you know, he did a good job baiting. But that didn't matter, right? Like, if I pair him with Poli, ignore ER, stun, death break, holds Bastion of Pelusha, which is a broken artifact, if you're playing in an aggressive manner, because, you know, getting a barrier and immunity for your backline is just that strong. Into a lot of matchups, like into Lua, into Ran. Like, if you have Guiding Light, barrier, immunity, Ran will not death break that unit, for example. Or, you know, if you just don't want to get stunned by Celine S2 on your backline as well, it's good for that. Yeah, just having that flexibility on your team is really good a lot of the time, even if you miss out on mitigation as a result. But yeah, he was just... It's that Death Break Sunbot. I played him with BBK quite a bit in the last week, actually, even on this worst build. I don't think this is exact gear, but I didn't fribbles the build, so it's kind of lost now. I think I was maybe a little bit less HP and a bit more defense, around the same speed though. But yeah, broken unit for sure. But I don't think I played him very optimally compared to a lot of other players that played him. But what can you do? Moving on to Gala, which is probably one of the more unique builds on my account. I don't think I saw anybody else ever picking this type of Gala ever. And it kind of worked to my advantage because, you know, if people are post-banning Gala, they're expecting a specific build on her. Like, they're expecting a 290 speed Gala. Then they're going to ban accordingly. So, you know, people would have to kind of respect the Gala pick a little bit more, which would let me be very piggy with my stat line, right? You know, 230 speed Gala is a little bit greedy to pick if you have only one opener in your draft and your opponent probably has some like 240, 250 speed units on their side. But What the ER build lets me do is win a lot of matchups versus things that have debuffs that would otherwise make you lose. And it also let me pair her with Christy. So if I was fighting an ER cheeser, well, at least the ER cheeser wouldn't be able to tag me, essentially. And it also let me keep this barrier up, right? Like, this barrier would essentially give her a second health bar, which is a little bit broken when her S2 procs. And it let me play her in a more, I guess, bruiser kind of way. Maybe not actually bruiser. Bruiser is probably not the right word, but it'll just make her really hard to kill, which is really good, while also, you know, killing their whole team. Like, I played a lot of her with the Model Poli, right? Like I mentioned earlier. You know, it'd be the Model Poli, Laia, Carmen, and then it'd be Nahkwol, Gala, because they'd have a Tywin, and this Gala build cannot lose to the Jenua ever. Like, that's one of the things I feel like people kind of sleep on with Gala, is she can't lose to Jenua in a 1v1 just because of her damage limit. Obviously the splash damage from Jenua can actually kill the Gala. But yeah, if you have a barrier from an artifact, you know, you're not actually at risk of dying, which is pretty good. But Gala is also a unit that, you know, you get cheesed a lot with her, which is a bit depressing, but not much you can actually do to prevent cheese from happening to you. I mean, I guess you could just not pick Gala and then you never get cheesed, but I think she's a little bit too broken to not pick, which my win rate probably kind of indicates. Like, I picked a 230 speed Gala with 65% win rate. Isn't that kind of broken? Yes, it is kind of broken. But here's her gear. It's the neck's the only bad piece on her, I think. But outside of that, like, the gear is pretty good. Especially for, you know, it's all low dead stats essentially. I think for a lot of the season, I was running this chest on her, if I can find it. But I figured 11 speed doesn't actually do much for me, and I'd much rather have the extra crit damage on her. But it's definitely a picky decision to make though, because, you know, I'm already really slow on the Gala, so maybe losing more speed isn't the best idea, but I'm pretty sure, like, the extra damage won me some games, so definitely worthwhile. But yeah. It's all good gear, but if I could have the same stat line on Torrent, that would be nice. Or if I could have some more imprints or some more artifact limit breaks, that would also be nice. But I don't, so what can you do? And then moving on to Senya here. I'm gonna try picking up the pace. I didn't actually play that much Senya. It's probably because my build was this, not because Senya is bad. I didn't have 3F on her. I had a Holy Sack and I had Protection set. If I were on a Speed set, I would probably run 3F, but I'm not on Speed set, so I didn't run 3F. I'm on Protection set because I was out of high health Speed sets, but I don't think she really meshed with my draft style though. Like, if I were playing Ran or Pera on 3, no, Senya is obviously your best friend. She's just a ton of damage, a ton of, like, she's one of the better anchors for that draft style. But yeah, since I wasn't playing that draft style, I think using her as anti-cleave with the Holy Sight and the Protection set was a lot more valuable. Because what the Protection set allowed me to do was it let me buff stack Monk versus Model Poli. It let me not die to Ran S3 on my Jenua. You know, if I were fighting versus Ran, right, they'd press S. Their plan a lot of the time is to soul burn S3 and just strip your Jenua right away. But since I had a protection set on Senya, and since that's unexpected, that just wouldn't happen to me, and it would just give me more EHP for my team. I don't think this build is optimal though. Don't get me wrong. I don't think you should build protection set Senya, honestly, but you know, it wasn't a bad build either. Yeah, I don't really have too much more to say about it. I didn't have too much reason for the protection set outside of buff stacking versus Model Poli though. And then moving on even further here, we have Zio. I don't know, sometimes people would pick openers that don't have Guiding Light, and then they would have Zio open. So then I'd pick the Zio, and then they would be ER. Okay, no, that didn't actually happen that much. I was on an effectiveness ring for a lot of the season, but I swapped into attack ring because I was playing him a bit with Nahkwol actually into the Conk Candy players, right? So they'd go Blood Moon Haste, Conk, right? And then I'd go Zeo Nahkwol instead of Beat 'em Nahkwol as my answer to the Conk, which would get me a book on my team. And then I'd go like Fumyr Gala for my last two. So then I'd have Laia, Zeo, Nahkwol, Fumyr, Gala. So I'd have 2 guaranteed books for my Nahkwol, and I'd have all the colors for Fumyr. So it kind of pinched them pretty hard in their draft, even if they picked Bidom, and even if, you know, they picked a Tywin, and even if they picked, I mean, your standard counters to Nahkwol on 3, and your standard counters to Zeo. You know, I think it was pretty good, and I think I had pretty decent success, but outside of that, I didn't really play much Zeo in the last couple of weeks of the season. Just because if they were a Cleaver, they were taking Zeo first anyways, or if they were a... Yeah, or they were just drafting so tanky that you can't realistically pick Zeo. Like, you know, sometimes I was in scenarios where I would just say, fuck it, let's slam Zeo Jacko, but I didn't run into any of those scenarios in the season. But maybe if I had Emma Ludwig, you know, my opinion of, or my pick rate of Zeo would have been a bit higher later on, but, you know, I don't own Emma Ludwig, so, yeah, that did not occur for me. Yep. Moving on to Requiem Roana, who is somebody I did pick quite a bit, and she's actually intentionally low attack, so I do not proc Jenua with her S3, because that happened to me in the season where I did like, was on as an attack ring, and I did like, you know, 56% of Jenua's health, and then he just cut and killed my team. So I said, okay, maybe we don't have that happen again, so I put an effectiveness ring back on her. Oh wait, let me show you my garbage Zeo gear. He has fast pieces. I do own a 20 speed crit damage neck, wow. And a 20 speed attack ring, wow. But I cannot build a real Ran. And then, yeah, these pieces are just whatever. Yeah, like he has fast pieces, because being really fast, okay, we're getting sidetracked, but being above 270 speed on Zeo is pretty important. Like, you think 260 something Zeo is good, somebody picks Ran and imprints into your Zeo. And then you will really want a 270 plus Zeo. Okay, but onto Requiem Roana. Holding book and resetting and stripping the team is a little bit broken. She's obviously going to get paired with Zeo sometimes, but I picked her quite a bit with Emma Pulley as well, because double pushback with the book on your team and then into a reset is too much tempo for most people to overcome if they're giving you turn 1 like that. Which a lot of people would actually give you turn 1 like that. But yeah, I don't know, man. Roana... did she really need a buff, man? Like, she's a little bit too disgusting now. Like, people would run Silver Rain Ran, triple Torrent Roana. Like, I know they'd just do like 10k true damage to your whole team. Like, what the fuck? That's not okay. That's not okay at all. But yeah, I was using her in a more control setting, right? Just to guarantee a reset on people, and it worked out quite well for the most part. But obviously she was weak to Albris, and since I didn't have much damage on her, if they did resist, I wouldn't necessarily be able to close out the game that well, necessarily. But because she has Death Break on S1, you still have a pretty decent chunk of damage, even at only 4k attack on her. And yeah, I don't know, I enjoyed playing Roana. Funny story though about the Roana though, I luck-sacked her. My priority was on the custom mystics. My priority was Architect Laika, then I would throw some pulls at Roana if I get the Laika early. And I picked Roana many times more than the Architect Laika. I regret getting the Laika, honestly. Maybe she'll get buffed to Copium, but probably not. But yeah, just OP control unit. Moving on to Celine here. I I think I had like 1 less imprint during the season, so maybe subtract some attack from her. But if I get 1 more imprint, aren't I 200k CP? It's not kind of good. But she was always played on S3 damage EE because I'm on a full nuke build, and being able to like actually fully punish your opponent if they press a non-attack skill is pretty important to me, because like think about it. If your Celine's low damage and you press and your opponent presses a non-attack skill and then you can't actually kill anything on their team, why do you even have Celine, man? Like, you're not actually punishing them. You know, they're just gonna Guardian Ice Crystal back their health bar or something. Like, yeah. You know, if you're drafting Celine, I think you really need high damage on her. The stun EE is good still, don't get me wrong, but it's still important to have like nuclear damage on her. But Starstorm obviously because it's her best artifact, and yeah, if they're drafting, generally honestly, if they're drafting more than 1 non-attack skill, Celine's pickable. Like if they're only drafting 1 non-attack skill and you pick Celine, they can just not press man and you down a unit. But if they have like holy DDR a Tywin, that was something I fought quite a bit. Yeah, you're good to lock in Celine. They kind of need to press buttons if they want to play the game. But regardless, she's good when she's good. But if your opponent's smart and can play around her, she's actually not that great of a unit. But yeah, I played her quite a bit still. And then we have a DDR. I think he might be missing a piece here. Yes, he is missing the A Tywin chest piece because I wasn't sure what chest piece A Tywin had. This is the build I switched to the end of the season. For a lot of the season, he was like 250 speed with high ER, but pretty low EHP. Like he had like 10,000 less. Okay, maybe not 10,000 less health, like 7,000 less health, and less effectiveness with a bit more speed though. And that build was okay, but I was being forced to play DDR in a more standard situations by some players, you know, like into Laia players and whatnot, and having the extra EHP definitely won me a lot more games than having ER won me. So it's definitely I don't know. DDR is just too broken, man. You can put any gear on him and he'll be successful, and I don't like it. I'm pre-banning DDR this season for the record. Like, this gear is gonna get unequipped after this video is over, mark my words. Okay, maybe not, because I kind of use him in Guild Wars sometimes, but yeah, DDR is a little bit too broken. You know, like you've played against DDR, you know what I'm talking about. Like, he just turns every unit on your team into a DPS, and he's like CCs the enemy team as well. Like, what? How is that okay? And then he also, you can't even pick HP scalers into it, because like, not only does he turn everything into DPS, he turns everything onto your team into a DPS because he's injuring your team, right? Like, what the fuck? That's not balanced. And then he has CC on S1. It's just not okay, man. And then you gotta run Ice Crystal on him, so then he's also now a healer because you get this broken artifact. Okay, bro. DDR is not okay, man. But regardless, you know, if you pick him, you win the game. Let's see. Moving on to Fire Ravi here. Fire Ravi is an outlier in my terms of win rate, as you can kind of tell. That's because I pretty much only played her exclusively when she was good. Which is paired with Emma Politis into people that go Celine or Fire Politis into your Emma Poli. She will eat those players alive because, you know, she is fire, she's resistant to divas, she injures if they pick like anchors like ML Senya or Bobu Haste into you. She's just kind of the full package deal for those scenarios. However, if you're playing her, you know, into a more standard matchup, I don't think she's that good, honestly. Like, yeah, you're playing her into, let's say, Conk Candy, for example. I don't know anybody who'd do that, but if you're playing her into Conk Candy, for example, and they have mitigation on their team, you know, aren't you in trouble a little bit, maybe, potentially? Um, you know, how's she gonna rake through, right, if you don't have any tempo on your side? But when you have the forced dual attack with Politis, she just does a lot of damage with her S1, and she's hard to kill because she sustains. And as a result, I run Victorious Flag on her, right? If you're looking to play her in a more standard scenario, Secret Sight is definitely the way to go. Over Golden Rose even, because Golden Rose doesn't actually heal that much. But yeah, if you're not playing Ravi with a tempo unit though, I don't think she's that good. But if you're playing her with like Frida or Bidam on the Soul Artifact, she becomes quite good again because Soulburn Ravi S1 with attack buff will one-tap pretty much any unit in the game. Even not through mitigation, but yeah, you just kind of chunk them a little bit too hard, and she's still hard to kill. So yeah. I can recommend her in those scenarios as well. Counter set's kind of good, because hitting back is kind of good, especially when you're hitting back does 10,000 damage on an S1, which is why she's also on the S1 damage EE. But yeah, Ravi's a little bit broken. Though I didn't actually play her that much in the last couple of weeks. Like pretty much all of this win rate is from early in the season, so you know it's not actually reflective of how good she is in the current meta, I will say. But here are her pieces. I'll just click through really quick because we have been talking for a while and I kind of want to get on with things. Bidam Nahkwol is her manius. Like obviously if they pick an extra turn, I'd pick her into them because denying an extra turn is quite good. But yeah, it's just generic Bidam. Doctor's Bag kind of fast with immunity set, but none of the gear's that good on her. It's quite a lot of dead stat, but I'm not gonna complain. I don't know. I didn't play her that much proactively later in the season just because of how weak I felt the draft was. And then let's move on to Lua. Lua is another unit I didn't play that much late in the season, but you know I was playing 283, 285 around that range Lua for pretty much the whole season, and I had a 65-ish% win rate with her, 64% win rate with her. Like bro, come on, you don't need to be fast for Lua to be broken. You just need to lend your debuffs. And she's mainly played into the DDR Tywin players again. But this was before Emma Luna came into the game, and they were pre-banning Jenua, right? So, yeah, Lua was quite a bit better then, especially because they wouldn't draft Cleanse in their draft. Like, it was just like the basic DDR Tywin Albedo as their first three. Like, they were doing this when Laia was open. So, you would get Laia still into these people? Like, you'd get Laia Lua? Or wait, no, I think they weren't pre-banning Jenua, they were pre-banning Nahkwol for some reason. So, like, you just play Lua instead of Nahkwol as a resetter. And, yeah, even if they were ER cheesing you, if you had like 200 F, you'd tag most of them still, honestly. Or you'd just draft books. Sorry, I've been talking for a while. But yeah, didn't play her that much later on though. Just because people weren't drafting as weak to her, but you know, if people were drafting weak to Lua, I'd still pick Lua. Like on 3 specifically, because having an opener on 3 just lets you pick 2 bridges, which is kind of broken. But moving on to Ran. Okay, my Ran win rate isn't good, but he also got pulse banned a lot. And I won pretty much every match where Ran got post banned. So can we pretend he has like 100% win rate? Thanks. Okay, no. This is the build I settled on for the last week. And you might be thinking, what the fuck is this garbage? Who would lose to this? A lot of people would lose to this actually. I'm pretty sure he had like a 70% win rate last week. No joke. Because people expect fast Ran, right? Don't get me wrong, Bruiser Ran is another Ran build I was selling, but I don't think as many people bought that build, and I didn't sell this build to anybody either, so, you know, it's kind of just me on Protection ER Ran, but this build was to facilitate BBK, and also take away BBK from Ran BBK players, right? You can kind of tell the pre-bans, right? Like, if they were pre-banning Zio and first picking Emma Poli, they're probably a BBK player. So if you were to take Ran BBK from them, a lot of them would just get stun locked and become free points because they wouldn't know what to pick. Because I was also pre-banning Para, right? Which would be another unit they might consider picking, because, you know, they try to race you with Para and then just debuff you with Para, but because Para's gone, you know? Yeah, you're kind of safe in that regard. I think it was a lot weaker if you weren't pre-banning Para, but regardless. The protection set allowed me to pick Nahkwol. It was just buff stacking Nahkwol into ML Poly so that she doesn't get pushed back with the Guiding Light and immunity. And the Silver Rain was to give attack buff to my BBK. And then I would also be able to Death Break their team, and then BBK would kill their team. Yep, kind of good. That's kind of all there is to the build, right? It was also a denial pick, right? Like, if they were pre-banning Zia, going ML Poly, they're almost certainly a Rand player as well. So, yeah, that was my kind of cope way to deal with Rand, was just take it away from them. And, I mean, he had a positive win rate, so it couldn't have been that bad, right? Like, if you can have like a slightly positive win rate in a matchup you struggle with, and then just have like a really good win rate in other matchups, you'll climb no problem. Or even if you have like, you know, a 45% win rate, like as long as you're winning sometimes in that matchup and not losing every single time to that matchup, you'll still gain points overall. And also Ran has Team ER imprint, right? Isn't this unit made to ER cheese? Yeah, I mean, it's just some jank-ass protection gear. Like, what is this? Don't ask me. Yeah, and then, like... Okay, this ring's kind of insane. Why is it on Ran? I don't think 42F is actually that relevant. But yeah, that's kind of funny. And then we have RB. Just pretty generic RB. His EE made him a lot stronger. Because, you know, getting increased attack and evasion when you come back is really good. And you just tactically nuke any opponent that drafted slightly weak to RB. Right? I don't know. Not much to say about him really. Like, you draft him with a Death Break into RB SD. Whoa, you kill their team. Your opponent drafts slightly squishy, you can summon RB and they'll die to 2 RB SDs. Kinda good. That's kind of all there is to it though. And then we have ML Sharun. I'd play ML Sharun on 3 quite a bit into DDR players. With yeah, and then with like another like AoE DPS, you know, so then I'd have like Sharun plus Sage Vivian, you know, and then Sharun goes, Death Breaks their Soul Weavers and Knights, Vivian, S3s, kills their team. Whoa, what an insane setup. But I think having her fast is pretty good, especially if you're pairing with like ML Poly or just playing even slightly aggressively. Otherwise, slower and tankier is probably the better build overall. But yeah, her gear doesn't matter too much. Her artifact does matter though. Like if you're playing aggressively, this artifact's really good. You get free effectiveness, and you get CR manipulation. You know, pushing something up, kind of good. And it's on all attacks, right? So if you S3, well, you still get CR push on your stuff. And it also cycles her faster too. Yeah, because of the caster and the ally with the highest attack. So that was kind of good. And RNGing a stun with Echelon, kind of broken. Yeah, she just, you know, lets you take tempo back from a unit that would otherwise be stealing your tempo in the DDR, which is really powerful. Yeah, definitely speeding up here though. Belian, I liked this 3F build. My 3F Belian is pretty bad though, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I don't know. I think just having high EHP on her while still having decent damage from the 3F is pretty good. This is my only 3F, by the way. I didn't really play much Albedo, even though Albedo's broken. But I don't really. I don't know. I used to run like a crit Belian, but then I'd play her into Jenua sometimes, and then she'd just proc the Jenua. So I switched to this build, and I liked it, so I stuck with it. And I picked it, and I won with it. Oh, what a great story. Not too much to say about her though. If they pick books, you could pick Belian, or if you thought they were going to pick books, you could pick Belian. For example, with the Rand BBK draft, I would pick Belian on 3 sometimes, just so that they wouldn't be able to ignore ER Soulburn me. Because, you know, that's kind of a good way to deal with ER, if you ignore their ER. So if you can't ignore their ER, your ER is still a relevant stat. Let's go. Yeah, definitely a strong unit, although Frida kind of makes her weaker, doesn't it? Oh man. What can you do? Anyways, going on to Christy here, who is... Okay, I liked playing Christy a lot, because if they picked, like, a Tywin into me, into my Emma Poli, like, if they went Blood Moon Haste, a Tywin, and I had, like, Poli Jenua already, you know, I could just summon Christy Gala, and it was kind of good. Not many people let me do that, though, but yeah, just having the ER flex on a couple of units enabled Christy on 3 to be quite powerful, because otherwise they would just pulse ban Christy and tag you anyways with their effectiveness. But if you can get to a amount of ER where their debuffers can't tag you, ER becomes a really good stat, obviously. And also, it's not ER cheese, bro. I'm picking Christy on 3. You kind of know I'm playing effectors, no? Can people complain about ER cheesing if you're picking Christy on 3? I don't think so. But yeah, I would pretty much only play her as second pick though, when I had Emma Poli. So not that common of a scenario, but it happens enough where it was worth having her belt. I also play with Conk when I wasn't playing Conk on 3. I don't know, it was kind of rare scenarios, but sometimes I would play, like into Laia first pick, I'd go Conk Jenua 1-2, and then Christy Gala on my 3-4 into whatever they were playing. And it was a draft that probably won, like over half the time, but I was also second pick, so like, you know, what can you do if you're second pick, right? Like second pick sucks so much, man. It's a bit depressing. But yeah. And we have, I mean, I'm just gonna skip the Katie's. I didn't pick her at all. Fumyr, I played quite a bit into people that played slow, but not many people play slow in this meta. So she definitely fell off a lot from her prime, from my prime Fumyr spamming, but I don't know. Yeah, she's just really broken. Like if you can get her S2 to proc, you win the game, generally speaking. Assuming you have, you know, valid colors around here, I suppose. The correct phrasing. But yeah, I really enjoyed playing Fumyr. Like she's one of my favorite characters to play. I wish, you know, it were easier to play her in this meta, but maybe if I pre-banned Emma Poli, you know, I'd be able to play Fumyr more. But I think Emma Poli is a little bit too broken to not pre-ban if you want to play her, and you have like an okay chance versus her. Then we have Candy. I'm pretty sure my win rate reflects my mentality towards Candy. Just straight up 50-50 win rate. Yeah. I don't know. If I wanted to gamble, I'd play her, but I'm very much an aggressive player, and I like to have control over the matches. So relying on Alvarez isn't really how I like to play the game. Moving on to Hwayoung. Hwayoung, I exclusively played her with Conk on 3 pretty much into DDR players, and it worked pretty well, as you can see with win rate. Her gear's not very good, but it's also not really worth complaining about, because as you can see, it's still 1. Torrent's pretty important on her for extra damage. Flat attack subs on the right side is pretty good for getting her attack up. These boots are garbage. Also, if you run a damage increase artifact, it's better than this artifact in terms of damage on her S3, but if you ever are attacking into anything that has a high attack, you want to attack increase artifact just so you're able to hit the full pen thresholds. And then we have, do I want to show my Politises, man? No, I don't want to show my Politises. Oh god, I'm the worst Politis player in the world. Okay, wait, no, I'm not the worst Politis player. I'm pretty sure my Politis had a positive win rate last week, and it was only this Politis that has a positive win rate, but yeah, it's kind of just a book holder and a denial pick. Like if they had an AU Fiend pre-ban and they first picked Blood Moon Haste, I would pick Poli, because they're probably an Almond player. So you kind of have to take Phantom Politis away from them. Otherwise, you'll lose. Because I don't know how to fight Almond Cleave, especially a second pick. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. I just don't. That doesn't. Maybe if I were a Rand player, you know, my Phantom Politis would have a good win rate, but I'm not. And this Politis is just like a really bad gen poly. I don't have effectiveness. I don't have ER really, so it's kind of just the worst of both worlds. And my Abyssal Crown's only plus 15. And yeah, I wasn't crown stunning anything. Dude, this is just a casino unit. When you get, like if you're picking degen poly, haven't you lost the draft already? And you're just hoping for crown stuns to win the game? Like bro, no way crown is a good win condition. There's no way crown's a good win condition, man. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't like picking degen poly. Book poly was okay though, I think. Moving on to SSV. SSV got buffed partially through the season, and I think she's a pretty good unit. You wanted full damage on her, I felt, because like a lot of the time, if you didn't have full damage, you just wouldn't kill anything. So Torrent, Lifesteal, high damage, kind of good. And then you'd have Chatty to compensate for your missing EHP from your gear. I don't know. I think the build was quite good, and if you ever played her into a 3F unit, the Chatty was 1000% necessary, otherwise you would just die to the 3F in like 2 hits. You know, I saw some people playing Book Vivian, but then they would always lose to 3F, whereas at least with Chatty Vivian, I would win versus 3F like half the time or something. I don't know. It was alright. With this higher damage, I was able to do some like pseudo cleaves with her with the Emma Sharun or with a Tywin, so it's kind of good. And being immune to debuffs is obviously quite strong. Karina, I didn't really play much Karina that much really. Sometimes, maybe if they didn't have Death Break, Karina was good. I regret craft eventing for Karina, but I did, so what can you do? Oh wait, I didn't click on Sage Vivian's gear, I don't know. I probably am not clicking the gear for like over half of these units, we'll just go quickly, because again, this is taking quite a while. Karina she's in theory, she's quite good. I mean, she's definitely got a very strong kit still, but just not right now, right? She doesn't do anything to give your team tempo, which is kind of problematic. And she only does, I don't know, she just doesn't punish the type of drafts that are happening right now that well. Like, everybody's drafting an Ignore, ER, Soul Burn, Death Break of some sort if they're cleaving, right? Like, they've got Rand, they've got Briar, and they've got Poly, a Tywin. It's like, how are you gonna pick Karina? Isn't she really hard to pick? Yeah, is pretty hard to pick. But when she's good still. Don't get me wrong. So she's definitely worth having geared. But in the scenarios you'll find to play her are pretty few and far between. And we're moving on to the BBK. Don't get it twisted. My BBK had like a 40% win rate early in the season because I would pick her into cleavers. And then I would lose. Because their Zeo SD would tag my BBK. Pretty shocking. But I had probably a 70% win rate with this BBK over the course of the last week, just because of the EE they gave her for a second immortality. Now, I was playing her on a full ER build because I was generally playing her as a denial pick to other BBK players, and then they would pick debuffs, you know, to combat the BBK. So you would need to resist the debuffs in order to win, right? Like if I were trying to force the BBK draft every game, this is not an optimal build for that. But if I'm trying to fight BBK players with BBK, this is the correct build. Is probably the best way to describe it. Because, you know, I'd have, with my Ran imprint, I'd have 250 ER, which is enough to resist most debuffers, for the most part. It's not enough to resist Ignore ER Silver, but nothing's resisting that. Shocking, I know. But it's still enough damage to kill squishy teams. It's still enough damage to kill tanky teams even if you have Death Break. So, you know, it's still a pretty strong build. And if you have attack buff, you know, you're gonna kill anything still. But she'd beat Poly Jenua players if they forgot that she existed, which a lot of people did. So, you know, I got free wins off of that too. But her gear is not that good. Outside of this helmet, her gear is not that good. I guess 42 ER is kind of always good, but yeah, it's just some okay gear for the most part. And she got the job done for sure. Okay, I think I'm gonna just... Wait, no, there's a couple units worth mentioning still. DJB, I played quite a bit before BBK came out into the Poly A Tywin players. But the thing is, the Poly A Tywin got replaced with... Like, Poly A Tywin Jenua got replaced with... No. So, wait, hold on. Sorry. I got it twisted in my head. So I would never give people Poly Jenua before BBK got her EE. But, so I would pick Blood and Haste Jenua into Poly first pick. And then they would go like A Tywin Candy or something. Or A Tywin something. And then I would go DJB on 3 to combat the A Tywin because, you know, Soul Constellation, DJB pushes up ahead of the A Tywin, or is already naturally faster than the A Tywin, and then they pick press Poly S3, he pushes the game further so he doesn't get cut by the Rage, blah blah blah. Being fast is pretty important on him, but then you'd put up immunity, you'd cleanse the slow, so you'd get tempo back, and you would not get stunned by the A Tywin, you wouldn't get death broken by the A Tywin, so he was quite good in those scenarios. But when BBK came out, right, I couldn't go Blood Moon Haste Jenua anymore, because they would just go A Tywin BBK or Ran BBK. So then, I had a losing matchup in the Jenua into BBK, because BBK's Immortal beats out Jenua's Immortal, right? Because she already has Immortal, so you can't proc her initial Immortal, and then she procs your Immortal, and then she has another Immortal to deal with your other Immortal. So, yeah, he got picked a lot less after the BBK EE came out, but before that, she was really strong as second pick into ML Poly. For sure, which is pretty much where 100% of these games were. Like I'd pick DJB Conqueror, I'd pick DJB Celine, I'd pick DJB DDR, I'd pick, you know, there are a lot of pairings with him, depending on their P-bands and picks, but at the end of the day, it was to gain tempo back for your team, and put up immunity for A Tywin as the main purpose of the pick, which was quite good. Let's see here. Anything else really worth mentioning on this page? No, I didn't really play any of these units. We're getting into the pretty low play counts. Like, DGB's only got like 65 games played. And yeah. Let's see here, next page. Hold on, I need to re-gear a unit, I'm pretty sure. But Briar is also worth mentioning. She's just on a build I was on for Guild War, so give me a moment here. Okay, this is the Briar I was on, and she's full damage, the touch of effectiveness, and immunity, which is a very standard build. But, I mean, okay, it was just more for another BBK pairing. Let's go. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of all there's to it, right? Like, with the Ran, I would have protection immunity with the Guiding Light, so she wouldn't get pushed back, and then I'd press S3. She was on a lower damage faster build before, but what I ended up finding was it doesn't do enough damage to kill a Jenua, which was relevant sometimes. So, you know, going slower and destruction set was definitely the play for me in those situations, or for those situations, so that she would unbuffable the Jenua so he doesn't get immortal, and then the little bit of fixed damage would finish him off. I wasn't too relevant, but I picked her enough in the last week that I think she's worth including in the video. Yeah, she's probably picked more than some of the other units in the video, honestly. Let's see, oh, maybe Tomoko's worth mentioning too. I mean, she's just another ML Poly pairing, obviously, because sometimes you would want to drop double book, like a lot of the times when people would pick DJB into me, I would just slam Tomoko, Requiem Roana, and kind of run them over, because I would have double book, double pushback for the DJB, so he'd be a bit less potent. Because, you know, other people would pick DJB into you when you went Poly A Tywin yourself. So, you know, having the double book option and having a DPS option as well that holds book was pretty important. And Tomoko definitely fit the bill there. Nothing really worth mentioning on this page. Well, okay. and then we'll just go to the final unit. My magnum opus of this season. Okay, maybe not magnum opus, but okay, nobody else was playing this unit, and I had an 80% win rate with her. So isn't Dominiel Pearlhorizon kind of broken? Maybe. Okay, probably not. But I mean, she was just the dumb control unit that nobody else was playing. Like, I think she was better than Fire Aura, which a lot of people were playing. Because, like, Dominiel Pearlhorizon, she sleeps and slows. Like, isn't that kind of broken? Like, she has the same odds of landing the debuffs as Fire Aura. And then she has another CC on her S3, which has Silver and Ignore ER on it. So, I mean, I think it's quite good, actually. Now, I think I stole a lot of gear from her, because, like, you know, as you can see, I only picked her, like, 30 times or so during the season, so definitely not, like, a spammable unit. But in the right slot, Dominiel Pearlhorizon's kind of good. Like, realistically, I'm just bullying DDR Tywin players. Wait, aren't most of my wins just versus bullying turn 2? Okay, maybe not. I'm pretty sure I lost to turn 2 quite a bit as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's it for the units I'm gonna show off here, though. Like, other stuff, you know, if we go to my, like, list here, like, you know, we're kind of falling off a cliff here. Like, sure, I have Arya in here, but, like, I didn't really play Arya that much. Like, what the fuck, 40% win rate Dustina. Karin, there's nothing too exciting down here. Like, everything down here doesn't really have that good win rate, I think. Okay, maybe not Dilibet. Wait, what the fuck? Okay, never mind. Dilibet has a good win rate. I should not pick Kitty Clarissa. Kitty Clarissa is always troll for me. Yeah, it's just like niche stuff that I wasn't playing at all in the last week, and the last week is definitely the most important part of the season. Don't ask me how I have a 40% out battle win rate. There's a reason I wasn't playing her. VD win rate's alright, but like, I don't know, wasn't playing her. Roman win rate's alright, wasn't playing him. Ara win rate's alright, wasn't playing him. Errol win rate, wasn't playing her. Shaltir wasn't playing her. Ed wasn't playing him. Yeah, so it's we're not missing out on much down here. Like, Bidika's high win rate, but I definitely wasn't playing her. So yeah, I mean, I'll just scroll through in case you're curious of my win rates here, but yeah, I'm not hiding anything down here. She's definitely high win rate. Shoes, whatever win rate. Aiden is blue right now. I have blue Aiden right now. Still from Holo Trials, even though she wasn't picking Holo Trials. I have more Pirate Flam games than every Stove Complainer combined, and I think she should have gotten buffed. And just generic Sage Ball stuff, and then, yeah, this is just where we left off from me scrolling down the list of my list of units. Although I skipped to Katie's, because I wasn't picking her at all either. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. I've yapped a lot, but thank you for watching if you've made it this far, even though I think it's kind of crazy if you watch me yapping about my character builds for an hour plus. But it's much appreciated for sure. And I don't know how to end this, man. Join my Discord. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like the video. Okay, no. Yeah, do all that stuff for real, though. Not ironically. Do it for real. And if you have any questions, you know, feel free to ask me in the comments. If you don't want to join Discord, feel free to DM me on Discord. If you don't, wait, well, if you're DMing me on Discord, bro, just join the server, man. How hard could it be? I don't know, dude. I feel like man, this is actually my second take of this video, and I feel like I haven't actually improved that much on what I was saying in the previous take, but I think I yapped it too much the first time, even like I'm doing right now. So hopefully, this is sufficient, because I'm sure as hell not writing script or anything for each individual unit, because that sounds like pain. For sure, for real, on God, no cap, on a stack. Okay, I'm out of here for real this time though. I'll be live on Twitch quite a bit. I might not be up to date on my Guild War videos though, because I don't know, I'm not terribly invested in Guild War this season. I don't think anybody really is outside of Paladia. But yeah, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. I'll probably tag something on at the end because I definitely will have forgotten to say something. But goodbye.